Welcome back to the BCSN SportsWrap. Brian Fulford and A.D. Drew here. And joining us right now to talk a little bit about HBCU baseball, as well as the effects that COVID-19 has had on Major League Baseball and the Black College baseball scene, is Michael Coker from BlackCollegeNines.com. And Michael is the lead contemporary reporter for BlackCollegeNines.com. Michael, welcome on to the show. Glad to have you joining us.
Thank you, Brian Fulford and A.D. Drew. It's a pleasure, especially to talk HBCU baseball and the many things that are going on. Looking forward.
Yeah, definitely. You know, a lot of news and notes seems to filter towards football and basketball by nature, but baseball is actually one of, obviously, along with other spring sports, baseball was one of the sports that was just getting into the heart of the season that got drastically affected by COVID-19 in the spring. And as with a lot of sports, we've seen the struggles to get back to play on the professional level. And so we'll kind of talk a little bit about how that's affecting HBCU players, and then even kind of talk a little bit about the future as you start thinking about 2021. But Michael, for those who aren't familiar with BlackCollegeNines.com or yourself, kind of tell us a little bit about you and how you came to start working with BlackCollegeNines.com.
Well, I started off with baseball, college baseball, about 18, 19 years ago, just writing, covering the collegiate scene of baseball. And then I gravitated towards Ruff and Bell. Ruff and Bell started Black College Baseball. I spent some time with Ruff and Bell, and then Black College Baseball kind of went under. And then I was able to get with Jay Soko and Black College Nines, and it's been one of the best moves I've ever made. I say that because HBCU baseball has been around since the 1800s, and baseball has been around. It's probably the longest sports longevity-wise at the professional and collegiate scene, especially for HBCU baseball. We have a rich history. We have a rich tradition. Major League Baseball, a lot of their Black players came from HBCUs at one point. Before the Division I became a hotbed of talent, it was HBCUs. And it's always been my goal and a pleasure to promote the sport, to lift the sports to new heights throughout the country. And there's a lot to talk about. To be honest with you, without Black College Nines, there is no HBCU baseball at the national level. We're taking it as to where it is a big product. I get calls all the time, and I don't mean to be lengthy, but I get calls all the time, or emails or text messages from people from Wisconsin, Utah, Montana, as far as Seattle, Washington. And because we're able to put we're able to cover the product that's on the field, because I'm always telling the baseball coaches that you put the product on the field and we'll report it.
You're in your background, you went to Edward Waters. You're a graduate of Edward Waters College. You played baseball at Edward Waters, right? That's what you were telling me a little earlier.
Yes, I did. I played 3 years. Big time Tiger fan, big time Tiger supporter. Was there when we were losing. Was there when we started turning it around, and now Edward Waters is a big time program. What I like about Edward Waters is the fact that it gave me an opportunity to graduate. If I had not had that opportunity and received some scholarship money as a walk-on, I may have gone in a different route.
What are some of the memories that you have when you think about your playing days, at Edward Waters, or just about HBCU baseball, and as you've seen it today, as you cover it and you look at it for young student athletes? What are some of the thoughts that you have as you look back and you look at the current world?
several things. For one, it gives you, HBCUs gives you an advantage academic-wise because you have that one-on-one experience with the professors, with your instructors, versus going to a major university where you're dealing with proctors or you're dealing with student assistant who assist the professors. HBCU gives you that one-on-one experience and it teaches you life. Now, on the athletics side of things, it took me to places I never would have gone on my own. And I hear this a lot all the time for current players as well as past players, former players. Like when we would go play Claflin or we would go to Atlanta and the back routes we would take. When you're playing the non-conference games and the teams coming in, I would have never thought in my wildest dreams of going through country cities, taking country roads, back roads, playing schools like Valdosta, Nova, FAMU. Back in the day when we played FAMU had the Sports Carney tournament. That was huge. That was huge back then. A bunch of teams came in a tournament right around spring break time, and you spent time in that city. It was a life-changing experience.
AD, did you have a question there for Michael?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask Michael, and obviously he knows a lot more about the historical portion of baseball, but I do know a little bit of history. On most HBCU campuses, when you look at the history, baseball is the oldest sport on that campus. And I know HBCU baseball has filtered people as far as back into the Negro leagues and into the early professional baseball, into the major leagues, into the 60s, where you started seeing more black players come along. But you've seen conferences such as the CIAA drop baseball over the last few years. Just kind of hit on that full cycle of from where we started to where we are now as far as HBCU baseball, Michael.
Well, HBCU baseball is what's really changing, and what's shocking to me is the lack of support it gets from a lot of HBCU administrators. Because, I'm just going to put it out there and be blunt about it. Football and basketball takes central precedence over everything else. Baseball has a budget, and HBCU's budget, sometimes they meet them, sometimes they don't. And a lot of times the presidents of the institutions, they end up cutting schedules, and it hurts the players. It hurts the team. It hurts coaching. You want to be able to compete at a higher level. You want to be able to beat the top teams, the teams that are ranked, the teams that are better than you, because it sets a standard as to how you're going to play and how your players are going to respond. And a lot of times HBCU baseball doesn't get the respect that it deserves from the administration. It's a sport that goes back to the Negro Leagues. The Negro Leagues, when they had the Negro League, they recruited and they drafted players from HBCUs. And then Major League Baseball, after Jackie Robinson, they went to HBCU baseball. I mean, when you have guys like Gibson, who was able to stolen bases, he did a lot of steals. A lot of other players that came out from HBCU, Ralph Carr, these guys set the precedence for who we are now. And what's disturbing is it's a baseball trend that we need to go back to that trend as to where it was the only sport that we played. And then the glamour sports came in because of the sneakers and the clothes and the things that they wear. And HBCU baseball has always been presented. It is a sport that it will always continue to strive. It is a sport that will always be there. We just have to get the administrators on board 100%, because a lot of times they don't support the programs. The programs struggle, and and these are facts that after a ball game, they get on their bus and they head right back to campus. The basketball team, sometimes they spend the night over after a game. They might not get back for a day or two. But that's the way it is. It like I said earlier, if we can get the administration and the support, one of the things they have to do is let the coach run the program. When a coach is on his program and he's out fundraising, he will take care of the players. He will take care of the program. And a lot of the administrators don't allow this.
That sounds like something that's, and when you think about college baseball in general, isn't college baseball in general sort of, and I hate to generalize, but it seems like in terms of whether it be financial support, it's hurting in comparison to basketball and football, and maybe, I don't even know if it's the third most funded sport at most universities, because I know there's scholarship issues. A lot of programs don't always have full scholarships in baseball and things of that nature. So is that just maybe a general thing about college baseball, and sort of maybe talk on what you've seen that's different on an HBCU level versus what you might see at a PWI?
Well, the budget. You take Division I baseball and Division II baseball. They have a bigger budget. You take like LSU versus Southern. Southern seems to beat LSU quite a bit over the years. But if you look at Southern's budget and you look at LSU has a $7 million budget. And then you have programs like the University of Michigan and UCLA, and then you compare those to the SWAC and the MEAC, and you see that there's no comparison. And HBCUs kind of struggle, but they're able to put a product on the field, and they play the game, and they make their schedule. So you have a budget issue. When you're going up against those Power 5 conferences or those other conferences, you have to look at how they're structured, how they play the game, and the top recruits that they get. Because let's be honest, Division I baseball is basically minor leagues. That's the minor league baseball at the collegiate level. So as long as HBCUs are able to compete, and we're getting better. The programs are getting better. The programs are putting good players on the field. It's a slow process, but at least you can say one thing, that HBCU is striving, and I don't know if we'll ever have any of the programs that were able to have a $4 or $5 million budget, but hopefully one of these days that could happen.
Go ahead, AD. It looked like you had a thought there or a question.
Yeah, Michael, you just said LSU has a $7 million budget for baseball. Did I hear you correctly?
That's true. Yes.
We have some schools in the SWAC who don't even have a $7 million budget for their entire athletic program. We're not even going to talk about the budgets at the Division II and NAIA level. So
it's mind-blowing. I get what you're saying. It's mind-blowing, right?
I almost can't formulate my question because of that number just being thrown out there to me. And I guess you have to say kudos to the coaches who coach at our HBCUs for turning scraps into gold, basically.
Every day. Every day. I agree with you. And I want to share this with you. You take Florida State. Florida State takes their practice balls and cleans them and use them over and over again. Sometimes they make it into the game. That you have to have a big budget for. And a lot of these kids, and they give kids these, it's unbelievable the things that goes on at these non-HBCUs. Kids they get all of these uniforms, they get the dress code, the shoes, the shorts, things that you don't see at HBCUs. I mean, a kid's closet is full of T-shirts or shirts of the teams he's playing for. That's a big budget program.
Yeah. Well, I guess, and I'm turning back over to Bryan after this. I guess the biggest thing that I've noticed traveling around to all of the HBCUs that I've traveled to over the years are the facilities. Not only the stadium, the game stadium, but the practice facilities and some of the other amenities that some of the look. Baseball is already a tough enough sport as it is. It's the only sport that you fail 7 out of 10 times that you're considered a success. Number one. Number two, even though there are probably more jobs professionally in baseball than any other sport, it is also the toughest road to get to the big show out of any other professional sport. But I guess coming from an HBCU to getting drafted to to try to make it to pro sports, but it's even beyond getting drafted. It starts at the Little League and Dixie Youth level to the Babe Ruth level, American Legion, on to high school and into college. The one thing that I've noticed over the years is we're not even getting drafted like we used to back in the day. And we're not getting drafted out of high school. We're not getting drafted out of college. Most of the times we have to do free agent contracts, which kind of brings me to my first question. MLB dropped from 40 rounds to 5. What was that impact on us?
Major. And it was not just, it affected all of collegiate baseball, but it really, in my perspective, it really affected HBCU baseball, because if you look at the last 10 rounds, the last 10 years of getting HBCU kids drafted, it's been in the teens from 11, 12, the 13th round on up. They only had 5 this year. So baseball has always looked for to take the cream of the crop in HBCU baseball. And I don't see that happening for a long time now. Maybe if they tweak things. And you touched on something earlier when you said free agent route. That's probably where we're going to go because of the coronavirus. 5 rounds is not a lot. I mean, we had some players. Normally pitchers get drafted from HBCUs before they get position players. We had a couple pitchers. There's a couple pitchers that are throwing in the mid-90s from HBCU baseball. And they normally take the pitchers first. But as far as position players, it's really going to be tough in the next coming few years. Now, Major League Baseball says that they're going to tweak the schedule and the rounds in 2021. We will have to wait and see how that goes. But to be honest with you, Major League Baseball has been looking to cut salaries and cut its cost, especially at the minor league level. And this is, I think the virus brought it out of them.
I need to follow up on that. And I can't remember the specific number, but there's like 40 some odd teams that are going to be cut from the minor leagues, as they're cutting down to a maximum of 120 teams. I do believe that's the number. Once again, if you could get into some of the effect, not so much of the cause, but more the effects of some of these decisions that MLB is going to have on players that not only look like me, but come from the same areas as I come from. Because there's plenty of people look like me in the major leagues. They're just from Caribbean countries.
Well, the good thing about scouting, because I'm a former scout, is you have to be on somebody's watch list. You have to be, somebody has to know that you're available. And it's not like, a kid is good, he gets, Major League Baseball has come down to now as to where your parents are paying for the scouting. They're sending the kids to scouting camps, and these are costs that a lot of HBCU or Black kids don't have, families don't have. It's sad that it's come down to your parents can send you to a scouts camp, and he gets picked that way. He gets scouted that way. That's the route that HBCU, I mean not HBCU, collegiate baseball has gone. When your family can take $20,000-$30,000, if not more, and pay that amount, put you in these camps and prepare you for the sport, and it kind of hurts the guy that has the ability. But you're also at the same time too that scouts are out there. Scouts do see the players. Teams during fall ball, they have scouting days. Scouts come out from every major league team, and they see the kids. But it's not the scouts' fault, because the scouts are always promoting HBCU baseball. It's the cross-checkers, it's the owners, it's the general managers. A couple years ago, well, about 5 years ago, one of the Major League Baseball teams in the American League East and the National League West, a couple scouts lost their jobs because they were pushing HBCU baseball, and they questioned why wasn't, there's a ton of talent. He didn't say a ton of talent. He said there's a host of talents at the HBCU levels. Why aren't we taking those kids? The scout lost his job.
Wow.
And it really hurts, because if you think about the play on the field, there are just as many HBCU players that can throw 90-95 as it is at the Division I, Division II level, and on Major League Baseball rosters. We just don't get the opportunity that I think that we rightfully deserve. But at the same time too, we are getting draft picks. So, and Major League Baseball, they do get the cream of the crop, like I said earlier. But there's so much talent out there, and there's so many good players as to where it's kind of hard to boil it down. But I think this virus has brought out a change, and and it's something that the owners wanted. The owners wanted to cut costs. I think it's that. I think they're saying that during a draft, $900,000 a year is average out for every major league, all the 32 baseball teams. Those numbers could be a little different, but that was a lot of money if you add that up and the revenue from it. And this is something that they've been wanting to do. I just personally think that the virus brought it out of them.
So as both you and AD talked about, the COVID-19 pandemic is, I don't know if the right word is crippling, destroying, or just reshaping the minor league system. But with, I've traditionally, we've all kind of traditionally grown up with the model of, there's from the major league level, you've got the AAA down to AA to single A to the rookie leagues and so on and so forth.
Extended spring training.
Yeah. So Michael, if you had to sort of maybe look into a crystal ball and think about what the future of the minor league system looks like, and especially as you mentioned, getting those opportunities, what do you think that looks like?
It's still going to have opportunity. The thing is, like I said, it's going to be the cream of the crop that's going to make it. It's a cost-cutting move. There are still professional leagues out there. You have the independent league, which has a ton of HBCU players, especially the Pecos League. And scouts are heavy at those games. I don't see much changing. I just think that you're not going to get that many draft picks. And let's be honest with ourselves. This is not just affecting HBCU baseball. It's affecting all of collegiate baseball as well. The 5 rounds versus 35. You're leaving off 1,200 players. And they're gonna make that up by going a free agent route. But they're offering a little bit of nothing, $20,000 for free agents versus the kid getting drafted in the 10th round getting $250,000. So, you know, maybe this could lead kids to say, hey, I'm going to abandon baseball and go play football or basketball. Could that happen? Sure. Will it happen? I don't think so. But I think that what's going to happen is at the minor league level, I think that we're going to have more of a cream of the crop from HBCU baseball, because you're going to see more kids going towards the Pecos League, the independent leagues, and that will get you on a roster as well.
I have in me the ability to make you a better you. So if you work hard, focus, stay on point, you can do anything. Trust me.
We made this track to tell everybody they can follow their dreams.
Let's kind of talk a little bit about some of the players that you guys spotlighted on blackcollegenines.com that were heading into this draft. And you know, one of the things to make clear, I definitely read a couple of articles where you even predicted or you foresaw back in April that the draft, the opportunities were going to be affected. Very similar to what kind of things we talked about in football, where we talked about the COVID-19 was going to affect college football players getting drafted in the NFL. Well, it had that same effect on the baseball scale. And so when you look at the top prospects that you spotlighted, of course, unfortunately, none of those guys ended up getting drafted in those first 5 rounds. But as you look at those top prospects that you pointed out, how's the free agent process look for those young men? Are there any names that, you know, we should be kind of looking at, or players? You know, we're like, I'm a Braves fan. You know, I know AD grew up in St. Louis. You still a St. Louis Cardinals fan, Drew?
Always.
Okay. So I mean,
Redbirds all the way.
Okay. So where do you?
We have a problem. We have a problem.
Uh-oh.
Because I'm a Cub fan, and the Cardinals are our rivalry.
Of course. I knew you were going to say, I was either going to say you're either a Cubs fan or a Brewers fan when you said that. I wasn't sure which one.
I won't hold that against you, Michael, though. We're going to remain professional.
So
yes,
what's free agency look like for guys? Some of the names that you brought up in your top prospects list: Josh Hancock from FAMU, Michael Johnson of A&T, Nikhil Galatas from Jackson State.Ose are 3 of the top pitchers that you pointed out. But for not just pitchers, but any of the position players, what do you foresee for some of those guys coming up here in the free agent market this upcoming week?
Well, the beauty of what the NCAA has done, because the coronavirus has shut down collegiate sports and baseball, they've given kids another year. So when you have a senior who only was able to play in 15 games before the virus hit, before this pandemic took over the world, the NCAA has granted and 1 more year of eligibility. So a kid now, he's thinking, hey, I'll try to draft. I'll see where I can go. Mind you, he's been scouted already. The scouts been out. Because my information is based upon scouting information, not just because I'm a former Major League Baseball scout, but I'm always in touch with the scouts. When I go to games, we make phone calls, when I talk to them, and when they say that this player is high on the draft board, or this player is high listed as a potential draft pick, and you see his numbers and you see what he's doing. I mean, you take Josh Hancock. He throws hard. He's He's in a good program at FAMU. He's 6'6", and he commands his pitch as well. It's the same thing for Michael Johnson out of North Carolina A&T. Nikolai Galitis, he's got, the scouts were really high on him. He has one more year of eligibility left. He has 4 or 5 pitches that pitchers don't hit. They can't hit. And he has a good out pitch. And he topped off at 93. That will get him on a Major League Baseball roster. That will get him in the minor league system. And when I scout these guys and I'm getting information, because I look at everything throughout the entire season, I know who's doing what from every team, from the NCAA to the NAIAs. And I can tell you who has the potential, who's on the list and who's not, and who's on the bubble. And these guys here they were on Major League Baseball's list, high list of potential players to draft. Like I said earlier, because we're down to 5 rounds, they had the potential to be in the 5th round. And I wouldn't say the first 2 or 3, but rounds 4 and 5, they had the potential, especially Hancock. Hancock fixed that Major League Baseball narrative of, they like a big guy, tall, lanky, 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", 6'8" pitcher who has an lengthy arm and can throw strikes and uses all the square inch of the strike zone. So, and these 3 guys fit that. They fit that Major League Baseball character.
Let me follow up real quick. I don't know, AD, if you were going to jump in, but before I had my follow up to that, and I had a brain fart there. Sorry about that. Go ahead, AD. If you got your question ready, go ahead. I had my follow up, and then all of a sudden I just lost it.
All right. Last year, Michael, and I was looking at your article about the HBCU World Series that was supposed to be played in Chicago last year. Number one, do you see, when things get back to quote unquote normal, do you see more events like this potentially happening? Number one. And number two, do you see these events happening down south? That event was supposed to take place at Guaranteed Rate Field, which is very, very significant for Black baseball in general, because of its predecessor, Comiskey Park. But, there are other southern cities that have been just as famous, Rickwood Field in Birmingham, Hank Aaron Stadium in Mobile, that have just as much history for Black baseball. So just kind of talk about the events like that could be done to promote Black baseball.
Well, what HBCU baseball needs is a national championship for the large school and the small school. And it's something I've been working on. It's something that others have been working on over the years. And it's something that the coaches have cried on. I felt their pain. I felt their cry. I felt their plea, because the HBCU players need something to play on outside of a conference championship. You take Division I, you take the MEAC and SWAC, where the conference champions are the only ones that go to the NCAA regional tournament, while other schools send 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 from their conference. And there's a system you have to have. It's the rating percentage index, is where when a team plays a ranked team, when you're playing a ranked team and they're in that RPI, that percentage index, that rating percentage index, it means, what that means is your strength of schedule. They go by your strength of schedule. And with your strength of schedule, HBCUs don't have that pleasure of sending 2 teams or 3 teams to a national tournament. So they have to win their conference, they have to win the conference championship, and then get glory from that point on. if we were to have a HBCU championship, it would springboard the sport. And we thought that we had that last year in Chicago, and Chicago was the ideal location for it. In actuality, if that game would have gone on, the Comiskey Park had said that they're only going to allow up to 20,000 people in, and at that point they had exceeded that. And there's a heavy presence in Chicago of HBCU graduates, and you were looking at Southern versus North Carolina A&T. Their issues came up at the last minute that canceled it, and then the Rains kind of took it from there. But what's really needed, what's really helped the sports is if we had a national championship and something that goes on every year to crown a champion for HBCU baseball. Some people say, oh, it's just mythical. No, it's not really mythical because these teams are competing on the field. The good thing about HBCU baseball is the teams play each other. Everybody plays each other. It's not like the ACC versus the SEC. Everybody in HBCU plays each other. And the thing is, when the season starts and you have the Major League Baseball Andre Dawson Classic, I think that we could turn that classic into a national championship and for the large schools. The small schools, we would have to do something different, and it would be based upon your poll ranking. That would be our big promoter right there. That would bring more fan base into the season, which would lead to a national championship. And I think that's where we're.
I think we lost you there right at the end there. I think you were saying that's where you think things are heading, Michael.
Yes, I think we're headed that way. It's gaining momentum. We were looking at. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish your thought.
Well, we were gonna at the small school level. I had put up I had got some funding for a small school national championship that was going to happen this year. We were set to make the announcement. It was going to be based upon our poll of number 1 versus number 2, and it was going to happen in West Palm Beach, Florida. We had secured the facility, Fit Trim Park, had sponsorship in place, and then what was shocker was when the pandemic hit, and that threw things in for a loop. That would have been a good starter. We had coaches involved. We had the thing I like about the programs is it's like what Southern did and North Carolina A&T. They took and they went. I gave them the information and they got their compliance people on it, and they found out that what I was telling them was the NCAA was okay with it, like the NAIA was okay with it, provided you met their criteria of being under the scheduled games played. And we were this close. So we were a snap of a finger away from hosting a national championship at the small school. It wouldn't have been the top 5. It had just been 1 versus 2, but that would have springboarded. Because it didn't happen because of the virus, looking at doing it in 2021.
Hold up. You've hit Division I level. You talked about the NAIA level. Was there anything particular at the Division II level?
Yeah, our small school is Division II, Division I. I mean, I'm sorry, Division II NAIA. It used to be.
All right, so those would have been considered small school.
Yes.
Okay.
No, that's the small school.
All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bryan.
No. It's interesting that what I find interesting is that with your plan, and it always brings back a similar debate that you even have when you think about football and maybe even a little bit basketball, but it's the calendar. So my question to you is, if I recall the game that was supposed to take place between Southern and A&T, FAMU ended up winning the MEAC, but was it because of the tournament or the regional tournament, and that's the reason why FAMU wasn't I mean, there were some sort of either scheduling or there was some conflict that prevented FAMU from participating in that Black College World Series event, if I'm not mistaken. What does the calendar have to look like for not only your large schools, but your small schools in order to make something like what you're proposing, Michael, become a reality? Because you have not only the conference tournaments, but then you have the NCAA tournament as well.
Well, there's a window. HBCUs, the MEAC and the SWAC, usually there's a 10-day window with that. Their tournament happens before everybody else. So, and we were situated into as to where it fit nicely. It would have worked. It would have given in that 10-day, because Southern and FAM ended up playing an exhibition game in Pensacola, Florida, to I guess you can kind of call that their way of playing for the our HBCU national championship. They were able to get their game in. The problem for the small schools is you have the Division II schools like the SIAC, the conference, and then you have the independent Division II HBCUs. Their schedule is a little difficult. And then you have the NAIA. When the NAIA has its conference, after they win their conference, then they have the NAIA national tournament. And that usually is a 5 to 6 day window. And we were able to get at least one game in, and it would have happened, but it was a question of the timing. And that's one of the things, because some of the Division II HBCU schools still have scheduled games after our tournament. And once they go to the NAIA tournament, or they go to their playoffs, it's a little difficult at the smaller school level to try to get it in. The cost thing is, in some of the baseball programs, coaches have said, well, maybe we could have it 2 or 3 weeks, but the presidents of the school is not going to let kids sit around and do nothing when school's out. And then, it costs money to send the kids home and to bring them back just for a tournament. No. And so you have to draw a fine line of when we can have that tournament, and hopefully set it up as to where in the future you tell the team, hey, look, if you can schedule your games way ahead of time and then leave a window for right after your conference tournament or before your conference tournament, we can put this tournament on. We can have a national championship. But the Division I, there's that window. And it really presented itself when those two teams were able to play each other in an exhibition, and they still had 4 or 5 days of rest. And that gives us hope that down the road that we can have this national championship.
Yeah.
What about a preseason type tournament or early season tournament? Late February, early March, before conference season kicks off.
Well, they have that. There's the Andre Dawson Classic, which was the old urban league. That was a SWAC. SWAC got smart and decided to, start including the MEAC in there, which is good. And then we're kind of working on one now for Miami for the small school. We've gotten there's a ton of teams that are saying they would love to come down and open their season in Miami. And it's not just to open their season, it's to get these guys prepared for the season. It's a good start to getting your guys ready, because once they go back to their hometown, some of these cold climate places, at least they got some games under their belt. And a lot of tournaments are at the start of the season. Edward Waters usually opens up a 4-game series down here in Miami in the South, in South Florida, West Palm Beach. You have Florida Memorial. They usually take on a ranked team every year down here. And you have teams that have been looking to come down. Harrison Stowe State has been, for the last 3 or 4 years, have scheduled teams to come down. Now their administration seems to cut their schedule. Benedict at one point was scheduled to come down. You have Nova, who typically plays Tuskegee, and you have Barry University in Miami, which plays Tuskegee and Stillman. So a lot of these teams do get on the road and they get their games in. So it's having a tournament. That's something that has always happened for HBCU baseball. It's an ongoing thing each year.
While I've got you kind of talking about this idea and this topic, does Major League Baseball have any, or have they expressed any interest in supporting HBCU baseball in some sort of fashion, similar to what you saw the NFL do recently in their measures to sort of spotlight HBCU draft picks or future prospects and really get behind the talent pool that's sort of the forgotten players that help build the NFL? Does Major League Baseball, have they done anything similar, or do you get a sense that there's a desire to be supportive in a financial way that would help facilitate things like what you're proposing, or help budgets and help schools that have budget needs?
Well, Major League Baseball spends millions of dollars promoting baseball in the urban areas. You will find that it's called the RBI program. And
I coached in that program at one point in time.
I'm sorry?
I said I coached a team in the RBI program at one point in time.
And see, Major League Baseball funds the RBI program, and what it does is you get good talent out of that. You get good student athletes. You get once again, you get in the cream of the crop. So Major League Baseball, in my mind, in my eyes, I think they're doing an excellent job in promoting HBCU baseball. Like I said, the classic example is the Andre Dawson Classic, which was the Urban League Invitational that Major League Baseball sponsored. So Major League Baseball is doing their part, but you have to put the flip side of this. How many Black kids gravitate towards baseball? Not a lot. It's the glamour sports. And the ones that do gravitate towards it are the ones that, tend to have a shot at making Major League Baseball in their rosters. Now let's look at the plus side of it. Major League Baseball has a longer longevity than football and basketball combined. You take guys who can spend 19 to 20 years playing professional baseball and will be set for life. That doesn't happen in NFL or the NBA.
Especially if you're a left-handed pitcher.
Yes. And you take a guy like a non-HBCU guy like a Jeff Masargent, who was drafted by the Chicago Cubs, first round, and he was drafted in the NFL. He made a decision that rocked the world. He chose baseball, and last year was his 19th year, and I think he has pocketed $300 to $400 million. That tells you right then and there that there's a system in place. It's a harsh system because Major League Baseball only takes the top 18% each year, and only the 3% make it as Rookie of the Year. But at least you can say that these kids that are in the minor leagues, they do come away with some nice pocket change.
Right. Michael, before we get ready to wrap up, I want to spotlight the 2020 Black College Nines national champions. Obviously, we understand that the COVID-19 shortened the season. It shortened the season, and it took away the conference championships and things. But still, Black College Nines was able to through their poll and at the end of the season, crown a pair of large school and small school national champions. And on the large school level, it was Alabama State from the SWAC, who finished the season with a 14-4 record. And then on the small school, it was Lane College, who finished with a 10-6 record from the SIAC. Take a moment and just talk a little bit about Alabama State and Lane College, and maybe what's the future look like for those programs given the extra eligibility that some of those players will have as a result of the COVID-19 and NCAA allowing the spring sport athletes to come back?
Well, let's start with Alabama State. Alabama State is stacked. Everybody's coming back. This year, they were projected to win 40-plus games, and they were on pace to win. Vasquez, the head coach, is heavily recruiting. He's getting some of the top players. Matter of fact, he's getting the top players out of Puerto Rico that want to come to Alabama State first and foremost. The secret is they want to go to Alabama State before they even think of going into one of the bigger Division I programs. So that's the respect, and that's how he's building his program. Like I said, they were projected to win 40-plus ball games, and they were on pace to do it. Everybody from that team is coming back next year. They have pitching, they have hitting, and they have a top recruiting class. And this is what factored into them being number one, not just the play on the field. The play on the field dictates everything else. But knowing that, and when we did a podcast with him, and we talked about those very things, where he said that everybody's coming back. And even though it was a mock regional this year, they actually had the Division I website, baseball, actually had Alabama State in the championship game of their regional. And even though that was a mock tournament, the fact that the players that he has, and they have 6 guys that if the draft was 40 rounds this year, they would have had 6 guys that would have gotten drafted. And those 6 guys are returning to school. So that's going to be huge. That's my advice for teams is to watch Alabama State. Now, Lane.
So let me ask this. So that does that pretty much make Alabama State the preseason 2021 number 1 team?
I can't say that.
Okay. All right, that's fair.
We have 40 voters in our poll, okay, and we are independent from each other. So, if it turns out that way, hey, I'm happy for him. I'm
gonna put you on the spot. Will you, Michael Coker, will you be making Alabama State the preseason number 1 team in 2021?
I have to look at all the factors first.
That's honest. That's honest.
Fall ball helps me dictate my thoughts. Not just fall ball, but recruiting as well, and who returns. And then the one big thing that I really look for is when they go to the JUCOs and get these players from these JUCOs. Okay. Because that makes a difference. That's like the piece to the puzzle. Hey, we don't have a left-handed good swinging bat. Hey, we got one now.
Okay. All right. And I love the honesty and transparency. All right. And then go ahead. You were about to talk about the small school national champion.
Lane came out of nowhere. Lane has been a dormant program for years. They didn't really have a field, and they went and got a new head coach, and he bought into the program. And it's going to be interesting to see how they move forward, because this was a senior-laden team. They sat their freshmen. All their freshmen were redshirted. So I don't know if Lane's going to be back next year with the same team, even though the NCAA has granted eligibility. But that team, they came out of nowhere last year. This year, in their schedule, they only played 16 games. They played 8 teams that were had a high strength of schedule, and they beat a Division I team.
Okay. That
team would have. They were another team that could have been projected to win 40 games this year, and they sat. They moved into the top spot after Kentucky State, who started off the season as the number 1 team, went on on a losing streak. Lane moved in and became the #1 team, which eventually became our HBCU baseball national champion. Like I said, all 8 position players were seniors.
Okay.
Will they be back? We shall see.
All right. All right. Well said. Want to make sure, again, if you're not following Black College Nines on Twitter, make sure to do so. It's at HBCU Nines, Nines. That's Black College Nines on Twitter. And of course, very simply stated, the internet, blackcollegenines.com. Are you guys anywhere else on social media, Facebook or Instagram, Michael?
Yes, all of those and Twitter. We have a bigger Twitter following.
Yeah.
We seem to connect well with you know when you're getting likes and followers from other places. You know, I never would have dreamed that like I said, Utah, Montana, Washington State, these other places. And you know, we have a presence, so that helps.
Yeah, definitely. And again, that's at HBCU Nines on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and of course the website blackcollegenines.com. Michael Coker is just one of a few writers. I mean, you guys have a nice, healthy staff of writers there, and so it's a very thorough site, especially if you enjoy baseball. But if you just enjoy and just want to get probably the I would call it the premier spot to go to when you're looking for information on HBCU baseball, make sure to go to blackcollegenines.com. A lot of good historical stories there. Was really enjoying the most recent story on, I believe it's the 1959 Southern Jaguars, who were national champions. That was a good read, and learn a little history every now and then, things that you don't know. So I want to encourage you, Mike. I want to give you the last word. Anything that you want to tell us to kind of pay attention to, something that we should be looking forward to, whether it be this upcoming week or the months ahead, regarding baseball or just Black college baseball in general?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna put the spotlight on 2 players. There's a kid named Cameron Phelps who was at Texas College. It was projected that he would have stolen 100 bases this season if the pandemic did not hit. He had 48 in 29 games. He still had over 30 games to go. I believe he would have got that. He was a senior. He'd been granted another year of eligibility. He's decided to up his game, and he's enrolled to play his last year at Grambling. This is going to be big. He's a leadoff hitter, Major League Baseball scouts. We're looking at him. This is huge. That's a kid we need to watch. And then there's the Anthony kid, Roderick Anthony at Texas Southern. Pure hitter, big time player.
Okay.
He could be the next what's that kid from Southern that was drafted? Weeks. He could be the next Ricky Weeks.
Wow. Ricky Weeks grew up in my neck of the woods, right down here where I am in Orlando, Florida. I remember him in high school, Ricky Weeks. So yeah. So and we'll be
look for us for hopefully we can get a national championship game play tournament.
Yeah.
There people are involved. Because of the pandemic, things kind of went on hold. We're hoping that at least Major League Baseball does something that we can put some revenue back, and then we can have that discussion again and then move it forward.
Definitely. Well, we're hoping that, unfortunately, like I said, the spring sports were hit hard, and, there's so many uncertainties, but hopefully in 2021, a lot of these programs can have full seasons and life will hopefully return to normal for all of us next year. And so we'll be looking forward to following the great work that you guys do. Appreciate the conversation. Thank you for taking time to come in and chat with us. And again, guys, make sure to follow blackcollegenines.com. That's on the internet, and at HBCU Nines on Twitter. Make sure you're following and make sure to stay up to date with everything going on with Black college baseball. Michael, thank you again.
Thank you for having me, Brian Fulford
Appreciate
and
you, Michael.
A.D. Drew.
All right, we'll be back right after these words. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a moment.
I have in me the ability to make you a better you. So if you work hard, focus, stay on point, you can do anything. Trust me.
We made this track